if there's one thing I think we can all agree on, it's that we need to talk about Shane McMahon. Particularly because everything has moved so quickly. Even as recently as Monday night, the WWE was still promoting the arrival of Shane McMahon. We were still getting clips on social media of Shane McMahon. So even as recently as, a couple of hours before Raw, the plans were in motion. The intention was WrestleMania. Sorry, I've got a random hair on my mouth. And yet somehow, since then, it's all fallen apart. In the meantime, the WWE have posted record profits all over again. They are officially a $1 billion company with the profit that they have gained because of budget cuts. And yet at the same time, they won't release Ali, who is requesting it, who is demanding it, who is refusing to be in a Royal Rumble, and may have also had his own altercation with Shane McMahon. Shane thinking, oh, you definitely should want in, it's the WWE, it's the greatest thing ever, as do most people in the WWE. So I thought, being crazy and a bit wild and, this close to 900 subscribers, I thought, you know what we're going to do? We're going to do a Thursday show. Because I'm insane, and that's what we do. When there's a lot of wrestling news, let's just jump in for more. So hello everyone. For anyone who doesn't know, I'm Tom Colohue. I cover wrestling news and the craziness and the wacky old world of wrestling that is here. I'm available right now on both Twitch and YouTube. If you are watching on YouTube, please click like, as many of you already have. We are flying on those likes already, and I appreciate it. Every thumbs up can make a massive difference. If we get just two new subscribers today, we will have gained 100 subscribers in the last 28 days. In the last 4 weeks, 100 new subscribers. Sounds ridiculous, doesn't it? And it is. It's a big number, guys. It's a big number. So if you can help, please do so. In the meantime, welcome everyone. Let's say some hellos. We have Jaden saying hello on YouTube. We have Connor saying hello on Twitch. Sean saying hello on Twitch. Rob is here saying, hey Tom, boy oh boy. After the Royal Rumble, or even during the Royal Rumble, things for WWE seem to be very, very unorganised and a complete shit show for WrestleMania plans. You are not wrong. I do apologise for my gas there. I need to stop drinking fizzy drinks when I'm presenting this and just drink water. It's the right call. Stop doing it. But what I'm trying to say is, things have indeed gone crazy. This Royal Rumble will go down in history as one of the worst, purely because of backstage drama. Thank you, Connor, for renewing your subscription for a 6th month over on Twitch. People, of course, I am monetized on Twitch, so people can subscribe to the channel shortly, hopefully. Plan is before WrestleMania. You'll also be able to subscribe on YouTube if you would like to. As well as that, viewing will also get money in Tom's pocket, so keep your eye out for that. Spiderball says Ronda looks so uninterested in Raw during her promo. She's not a face, and she's been told to be a face. It's not going to work, and she'll be a heel in no time. Sonic says, hello Tom, how are you doing? I'm doing good, thank you. Things are a bit crazy. Things are a bit crazy here. I'm having work drama as always, but you know what's not dramatic? These shows. These shows are a balm to my damn soul. It just livens me up knowing that I can look forward to shows like this with people like you who just keep me enlivened. Kevin says, congratulations Tom on the subscribers. Thank you, Kevin. I've been keeping track of other channels, and I've got to say, channels 3 times our size are not growing as quickly as we are. We are doing great things here, and I plan to continue doing so. Even if I have to go a little bit daily, you didn't hear it from me. Sources indicate Tom Colohue is considering going daily with these shows. Can't trust it. Can't trust it. G'day, Pop Culturist. Great to see you. Jason Wedge is here as well, saying, hey Tom, you okay, mate? I'm good, thank you. Also says, I'm glad Shane won't be at WrestleMania. Seems a lock now that Shane McMahon is not going to be at WrestleMania, so let's talk about it. Firstly, and I hate doing this, you guys know I hate doing this, but it's a fact. Ringside News had this first. It's a fact. They had it. I've said in the past, the company that is Ringside News have been proven to have some sources. They did have, after all, the hair versus hair match between Mandy Rose and Sonya Deville at SummerSlam, year before last, before anyone else did. There is proof of sources. I just really don't like the people, the ethics, or, how they operate as a business. But they got it right. So, I can't sit here and be annoyed at people not giving me credit when I get things right if I don't give people credit when they get things right. Tip of the hat, Ringside News got this one. It's really funny watching so many big name wrestling journalists bending over backwards to avoid saying that phrase and just admitting the truth. Ringside News got it right. That's a fact. That is a fact. Shane McMahon has been removed from the company. He has been, and this is one of the reasons the show is late today rather than yesterday, he has been essentially given a payout and told to bugger off. $820,000 in total, a payout amends to, that he's been given for his work over the past year the past year or so I should say, for services rendered, and he's been told get out and don't come back. Apparently it was that bad during the Royal Rumble. Bad Bunny has been reported as having his number and his plans moved, changed and constantly rewritten. Meanwhile, the plan was, even as early as about 2 hours before Raw, the plan was Shane versus Austin Theory. That was the intention. I'm not hearing anything about Elimination Chamber personally. I can't confirm that, so I won't report it. Everything else I'm able to confirm, so I will report. So Shane has been told, due to ruffling so many feathers, get out. And Shane is being pointed to as the main reason that all of the big names were late on in the Royal Rumble, and why the Men's Royal Rumble was one of the worst that I can remember. Genuinely one of the worst. Shane McMahon will no longer be at WrestleMania. He will undoubtedly try and change their minds, but he will not succeed. Austin Theory at the moment needs a new opponent. Vince will be picking someone else at this point. Sean says, did you all hear Bischoff's rant on his podcast about Dave Meltzer? I did. I'm going to go ahead and no comment that one. My opinions on Dave Meltzer have been... they are all over the pages of this here YouTube channel, let's just say that. Sonic says the conference call is happening now, Tom. It is indeed. I'm not tuned in. I wasn't particularly interested. I'd rather just read about it later, to be completely honest. If you guys are listening, by all means, you continue doing so. Spider-Boss says, can Sasha's situation be similar to Daniel Bryan before WrestleMania 30? It can be if they decide it is. Don't shut up about this. Keep talking. Keep hitting the hashtags. They'll start listening. Omega says, Tom Colohue. Welcome, Omega. How you doing, mate? Great to see you. I'm doing a random Thursday show and I still see so many familiar faces. You guys are fantastic. Yash, welcome to the show. Says, do you think Shane can return soon? Nope. Nope. Not a chance. Oh, you may forgive me for saying it, but no chance. No chance in hell. Vince is not happy, and this is not a short-term thing. It is not new. It is not a new thing that Shane McMahon and Vince have not got along. Shane and Vince have not been getting along for more than a decade now. It's been more than 10 years. More than 10 years since Vince and Shane McMahon have gotten along. Now, every now and then Shane returns. You'll remember Raw Underground. He pitches something and they try it. Raw Underground was a Shane McMahon invention. There were a number of people that Shane wanted to work with. A Riddick Moss, for example, the Herb Business, Shayna Baszler. Got a bit of a push through that. Omos started in Raw Underground. So Shane has been good for some people, and in fact some people are very unhappy to see Shane go. That said, there are others not that sad to see Shane go. Not sad at all. Kevin says, any news on some of the women's matches, pardon me, for WrestleMania, like Sasha and Bayley? Sasha is cleared. Bayley is not cleared at this point in time. They have provisional plans for her, but nothing serious. Right now, to my knowledge, there isn't a plan for Sasha at WrestleMania. They are determined to have a match for Sasha at WrestleMania. They just don't know who it's going to be yet. Jason says, do you think Brock versus Roman at WrestleMania will be champion versus champion? Nope. Brock will not be winning in the Elimination Chamber. I suspect he'll have a Braun Strowman type run. Hello, Michael. How you doing, mate? Sean says, Austin Theory versus John Cena at WrestleMania. I find that unlikely on the basis of I don't believe John Cena is going to be available. But if he is, might as well. Might as well. Michael says, give us Sasha. I'm sick of her getting screwed over. Fingers crossed, mate. Fingers crossed. I'm a fan too. JJ says, hey Tom, Sean Ross posted an article and it said a talent said nothing matters outside of 4 people. Do you know who the 4 people are? Well, firstly, that's the opinion of the talent. Without knowing who that talent is, it's very hard to say what their opinion would be and who their 4 would be. But the most important people backstage in WWE, Vince McMahon, Kevin Dunn, Conrad, and John Laurinaitis. There's 4. Michael says, can we still summon Shane? Yes, because ultimately, we caused this. For people who are relatively fresh to the channel, for a while we were known as Shane Summoners because Shane and Strowman last year was kind of our fault. We kind of made that happen. We kept saying his name and then there he was. One day we heard, here comes the money, and we haven't been able to get rid of him since. So yeah, it's all kind of our fault. We can indeed still summon Shane. We'll find a way to do that. Hey Darnell, how you doing, mate? Rob says, I mean, golly, this company is like a reality show backstage. I laughed when I heard he got removed from the company, but as a whole, I feel like a lot of Mania plans have switched around. They have. Ultimately, at this point, usually they have the entire Mania card planned out and they're just making it happen. Right now, from what I'm being told, they have about a third of the Mania show planned out, and some of it they haven't even written the storylines for. They just have decided that they want something for this person. They've decided on certain matches. For example, let's say for example, they have a plan for a match between Edge and AJ. Well, they don't have a storyline for it, but they do have a match planned. So yeah, it's all going a little bit crazy. There is no plan at current for Bobby Lashley. There are voices in creative that want to see him work with Omos, and that seems likely at this point in time, but that would necessitate Bobby Lashley losing the championship. There is, of course, a strong possibility that Bobby Lashley versus Seth Rollins will be your WWE Championship match. Seth Rollins, of course, is leaning heavily into a face run right now. Roman has been doing the work there. But then again, against Bobby Lashley, that might not work out so easy. Spider-Boss says, just this week it began the hashtag #GiveUsSasha. Good. That's exactly how it should be. They need to start listening. They need to start paying attention to these things. We had a whole thing about give Naomi a chance. We've kind of given her a chance. She's on TV. Bob Culturist says, there goes the money. I've seen that meme so many times over the last few days. Omega says, did I miss something about Sasha? Not that I'm aware of. When it comes to Sasha Banks, last I heard, they're intending to have a match for her at WrestleMania. They just don't know what that match is going to be. Sonic says, I heard Asuka isn't at the Rumble and I'm already seeing the We Want Asuka already in play earlier this week. Asuka is cleared, but apparently they did not decide to use her at the Royal Rumble just in case it further aggravated an injury. Given the response that Sasha Banks has had with her brief appearance at the Royal Rumble, I kind of get why they didn't want to put Asuka in there. Michael says, Vince officially trades Shane for Sasha. There is a reason I've made a lot of jokes about Sasha being Vince's favourite, and Shane not so much. There is a lot of stuff that I don't say, that I can't say, because maybe I only have one source for it. And last time I reported something with one source, let's just say a whole load of wrestling journalists got together and decided to ruin my career, and cost me thousands upon thousands of dollars in the process. And nearly make me homeless and a little bit suicidal. So maybe I'll keep two sources next time. Mogsy says, hey Tom, how are you? I'm good, thank you mate, welcome to the show. The user is here as well saying, hi mate, do you think Lashley is winning the chamber? I think so. I see no reason not to have Bobby Lashley carry that championship into WrestleMania. I see no reason at all for that to be any different. Let him hold the championship. He's a very credible champion. Let him run with it. I'm very happy with that. Gonna chant Shane O'Mac. He's trying to summon. Pipe the hell down. We are 15 minutes in. I'd just like to remind you all that we are currently, let's just say, pursuing an attempt to get hold of 1,000 subscribers. We are very close. Last I checked, we were on 891. If we get 2 more, we've gained 100 subscribers in the last 28 days. 100 subscribers in the last 28 days. Just 2 more. Now, just 9 more, and we reach 900. We are this close to 1,000. So, please consider every like, every subscribe, every comment in the chat makes a massive difference. So please do consider jumping in, chatting away, even just amongst yourselves, really does help feed and fuel the show. And of course, if you're watching on Twitch, you also have the option of clicking follow, where we are getting closer and closer to 450. Yash says, when will Veer debut on Raw? We've been waiting for months. Just read a report from Sean Ross Sapp, Fightful, that there are no plans for Veer. Is it true? Yes, that is true. Creative have not written a storyline yet for Veer, which is why he's still coming. There is also starting to be a feel in the WWE Creative section that the fact that he's still coming is also really starting to work to his advantage. So they're kind of okay with it. What this means, of course, is that they've stopped actively trying to write anything for Veer, which is a problem. My suspicion is that when Veer finally comes, he'll be thrown into the WrestleMania Battle Royal and just sort of be a body. I don't see much for him, to be honest. Get the Table says, hearing from Sean Ross Sapp. I love that you guys always bring in the sources. I appreciate that. The morale right now is pretty low. Do you see any changes on the horizon? First things first, Vince will take action on this. The end results of the Royal Rumble, they're going to be felt for a long time. This was a bad show when it comes to backstage. Front of house, most people seem okay, but backstage, a lot of real problems there. A lot of people very, very unhappy, including many of the legends and a few of Vince's favourite people. When it comes to changes on the horizon, we're likely to have backstage changes first. The first change, of course, is Shane McMahon being quietly ushered out the door. I would imagine we're going to get certain voices more prominent in the creative room, but this is an opportunity for one Kevin Dunn. Kevin Dunn has recently sort of taken over NXT, and with this in mind, Kevin Dunn now has a seat at the table to determine who's getting called up next. Kevin Dunn has been acting as a scout down there, as well as basically ensuring that their production staff elevates the production to WWE main roster standard. That's his supposed actual job in this. So with this in mind, those changes are likely to be based on who gets called up and how they get used. I am not expecting to see Mustafa Ali wrestle on WWE TV again. Just to be clear, I am expecting that release to be granted as soon as essentially Vince gives up. As I said, I was the very first one when the news broke reporting Mustafa Ali's release request has been turned down. It was turned down immediately by the company. They will change their mind. He will force their hand. When it comes to management changes, I don't expect much in that regard. I don't expect to see the end of Conrad or Laurinaitis or Kevin Dunn, obviously, or the return of someone like Bischoff. I don't expect it. Thank you very much, Jimmy Wrestling 6859, for the follow on Twitch. You'll get a notification every time we go live with wrestling news and eventually with a bit of gaming. But for now, it's just the wrestling news. So if you're a wrestling fan, please do stay tuned in. And remember, if you're watching on YouTube, please consider that little thumbs up and subscribe if you can. James Stewart says Reigns to hold the title until SummerSlam. I don't think it'll get as far as SummerSlam, but I definitely believe it'll go beyond WrestleMania. Welcome, Ring Scoops, and thank you very much for the 45 bits. I do appreciate that. Every little bit in the pocket is a big help to me, and it's great to see you, Ring Scoops. It's unfortunately been a little while since I popped into one of your shows, but I keep an eye on it, I'll tell you that. Spiderboss says WWE changed when fans supported Becky in 2018-2019. It did. Basically, the issue as much as anything is that WWE will listen until you stop talking. For example, Rusev Day. Rusev Day got really over because the fans got really behind it, so the WWE listened. They started to push Rusev. He beat Samoa Joe. He beat Daniel Bryan. He was in a WWE Championship match with AJ Styles. He was in the tag team divisions. He was featured strongly every single week. Then, people started to go quiet. He missed a couple of weeks. Nobody seemed to be actively wondering where he was, and WWE decided, okay, we're done with him now. They turn very quickly. Now, I want to be clear here. I'm not blaming the fans. The WWE chose not to support someone who had a real momentum behind them. But never shut up. Ever. Do you remember the Yowie Wowie chants months before The Fiend debuted? That would have kept The Fiend around. Sean says Nia was on oral sessions and said WWE called her with a new deal and an appearance in the Royal Rumble, and she said fuck no, said she's still under her no compete and has no plans to return to WWE. I have to correct that slightly, Sean. There was apparently no offer of a new deal, but an offer of a one-off appearance at the Royal Rumble, which she didn't want to do, and I really can't blame her. Really can't blame her at all. She's one of those that I'm not sure will ever return to wrestling on the basis of she couldn't stand the fans. And given the response from the fans, I kind of get it. When she injured Becky Lynch, her biggest supporter was Becky Lynch. Becky Lynch told her several times, I'm glad it happened. It got us both way more over. The fans not so much. The fans didn't just turn, they turned entirely. Steve, welcome. Says, hey mate, call it a Tom takeover. Good to see you on a Thursday. I am indeed here on a Thursday. Who knows, you may end up with a lot more Tom on your TVs. I don't know how people feel about that, so let me know. But at the moment, it is certainly something which I am considering. After all, I think there may be something of a gap in the market, and also, as I say, almost 100 new subscribers this month. I'm doing something right, so we'll see how it goes. Spider-Boss says, can Roman cost the match to Brock at the Chamber? Yeah, absolutely he can. And I'm confident he will, but not himself. I feel Paul Heyman will make an appearance outside the Chamber, allowing Bobby Lashley the chance to spear and beat Brock Lesnar again. Rob says, oh Finn Balor. All I can do is pray for this man. He said in an interview he wanted to go to NXT UK and they told him maybe in a few years. I know when he heard that he said, what the fuck? Finn is one of those where, to be blunt, the WWE don't know what to write for him. They aren't familiar with his New Japan character, which worked so well. They're not even that familiar with his indie character, which is basically the New Japan character. For some reason, the creative team don't like sitting down with the wrestlers and saying, who do you want to be? They don't like sitting there with the wrestlers and saying, what role do you want to play? I don't understand that. But I do think Finn Balor is one of those who will probably see out his contract. That is not a spoiler. That is just an opinion. Hector says, happy Friday, Tom. It is Thursday, Hector. Back. I understand the confusion. I'm usually only here on Fridays. We will still be doing a show tomorrow. Says, does Mustafa Ali have any pull with wanting his release? Or would Vince really make him sit at catering till his contract runs out? Here's the thing. Vince McMahon does not want to release people unless he chooses to release them. He also wants to look powerful. He doesn't want to look weak, so he doesn't want to release people and basically have it said that they forced his hand. Nick Khan, however, sees no value in keeping someone who does not want to work for the company. Nick Khan would rather have 1 or 2 year contracts than 4 or 5 year contracts. Vince will definitely make him sit in catering. Nick Khan will allow the release. We'll see which one wins. I've got to be honest, I don't think it's going to be Vince. Imagine saying that a couple of years ago. Connor says, I got a Ouija board in here for my summoning. Connor, you're always prepared. Here comes the ghosties. You're gonna... I nearly went dark there and then I decided not to. Rob said Lashley has to retain. There's just no way that title is hot potato style changing 3 matches in a row. You say that, but it's WWE. We can't have that much faith in them to get it right. We just can't. It's a shame. Robs also says Veer writing his story soon. Doesn't have much choice at this point, let's be honest. Connor says, oh no, did Shane upset Vince's right hand man Nick Khan? Oh no, so sad. Nope, Shane upset Vince. The right hand man is still technically Kevin Dunn. He actually gets paid a lot more than Nick Khan. Megan Welcome says, oh no Shane versus Fury at Mania. Whatever will we do to entertain ourselves about this 5-star classic match? Oh no, you never believed in the value of Shane. And to be fair, I kind of get it. My expectation is that we're still going to see Austin Theory in a match, but we'll wait and see how it actually plays out. Get to Table says, what's up with Triple H? What is he doing right now? Right now, he's resting, recuperating. He is continually trying to get involved in NXT again. And a lot of meetings do involve him in a digital sense. So he is still working. He's just not there operating the day-to-day. He's there as a huge part of the big picture. He is still the man in charge. However, he's not there for the day-to-day. He's not doing any of the coaching. He's not working with the entrances, which is something he used to love doing. So at the moment, Shawn Michaels is entirely in charge of NXT. Jimmy Wrestling says, hi, what a bad Royal Rumble. You're not wrong. You're absolutely not. We thought the women's was bad because the women's was bad. But then we had the men's. And that was worse. Rob says, any news on TJ Wilson and the Rumble fallout? Well, quite a few people in Sorry, bear with me 1 second, guys. I do apologise. A lot of people in creative, after how terrible the Women's Royal Rumble was, said to each other, wish we still had TJ Wilson. Let's just say his absence made the heart really grow fonder. The WWE are talking to him right now. He's still with the company. To be clear, he's still with the company. He may have just taken a leave of absence, taken some time off. There's a lot of different possibilities. Right now, to my knowledge, he is still with the company. Jimmy says Reigns versus Rollins was not very good. I do disagree on that. I do think that was match of the night by quite a margin. I think the actual championship matches were okay. Anything involving Roman for me was good. And I liked Rollins being Rollins. Outside of that, though, matches were lackluster. Rob says, well, a report came out saying value was the reason why he got denied his release. My frustration with WWE is that if you see value in someone, why not do anything with said person? You guys ain't going to like this. You're not going to like this at all. What they mean by value is potential value to the competition. It's one of those where they're essentially saying if we let him go, he will make the competition much stronger. And he will. Ali is one of those people. Let's say he goes to AEW, even just as a mouthpiece. People are going to tune in. People are going to care. The WWE have no control on this one, but they are trying desperately to keep whatever control they can. They're not going to succeed on this one. Kevin says, why does the WWE want to do Lita versus Becky over Rhea Ripley versus Becky? Oh, you're going to love this one too. Essentially, the WWE don't believe that they have a big enough name to take on Becky Lynch at the Saudi Arabia show. They are keeping Bianca Belair for WrestleMania, which leaves Alexa Bliss, who is still developing her character or redeveloping her character. After that, they don't believe anyone is a big enough name to warrant it, so they asked Lita. Essentially, the WWE have not made big enough stars to step into the big matches, so they're just bringing back someone from years ago. It's a familiar story, isn't it? Yash says, do you think Paul Heyman would betray Reigns at WrestleMania and Brock would win? No, and the reason I think that is because that would mean Brock losing the championship and regaining the championship where he could have just kept the championship. There was no reason for the betrayal from Brock Lesnar to defect to Roman Reigns if all he's going to do is go back. It's just undoing what they've done. I can't guarantee it's not going to be the case, to be clear, but I don't personally see it. Hector said, with the effects Shane has had on the morale of the locker room, would Vince even dare bringing him back for Mania, or would he wait till this all dies down? I can't see Vince exiling his own son from the company, but it is Vince. To be clear, it was Vince's decision to get rid of Shane. It came down to Vince McMahon, and this has apparently been brewing for a long time. There's been reports from Wade Keller, for example, that these two have been at best estranged for a long time. There is discussions of a meeting that took place in 2012, March 2012 to be exact, where Shane McMahon decided he wanted to come in and say, I'm going to take over creative. He didn't, Vince said no, but it was that which eventually led to him returning in, I want to say 2014? No, 2016. 2016. I can already hear Megan typing. I believe it was 2016 when Shane eventually returned. That said, Shane is not that popular backstage. He has a crowd who like him, usually wrestlers who haven't had that many opportunities, who he promises opportunities to. Such as, for example, I've mentioned people who got the rub in Raw Underground. Riddick Moss, Omos, Shane and Baszler, Hurt Business. People who do support Shane because he created something that works for them. Shane also wanted the dancing women in Raw Underground, so... Ring Scoop says, my favourite day of the week is Tom Day. Thank you, Ring Scoops. I appreciate that. The support is really quite beneficial and I appreciate it. Pardon me. Bailey says, apologies if you've already discussed it, but what are your thoughts on the WWE earnings release today? I've touched on it, but I've not gone in depth. So let's talk about this. The WWE made over $1 billion last year. Over $1 billion. And released a hell of a lot of people to pay for that. Now, certainly, those numbers do add up. And if I've got my math right, and some of this is based on sources that aren't guaranteed, if I collate all the information we have on what everyone was earning who is being released, then it accounts for about 0.8% of that total money. 0.8%. Less than 1%. To say that the words budget cuts were bullshit, that is a massive understatement. The WWE continue to make record profit, and here's the thing. We as fans, if we are not enjoying the WWE product, why would they care? Ratings lower than ever before, why would they care? The WWE exists for one purpose, to make money. The WWE does one thing extremely well, make money. And this is the thing. When I hear that AEW is competition, they're not. They're absolutely not. Because the WWE's resources, I keep hearing that, but the Khan family have so much more money. But they don't have so much more income. AEW are still operating at a loss. Which means they are completely financed by a backer who may one day decide to stop. That's the biggest challenge that AEW have right now. They need to become profitable, and this is why they've started to let contracts run out. Spider-Boss says, does WWE fear any negative reaction for Ronda and Charlotte this Friday? No, but they should. It's not going to get a good reaction. I believe the fans will side with Charlotte over Ronda. But let's just say Kevin Dunn has the audio ready. Yay! Boo! Boo! Yay! Yay! That's his job now. That's his job. Alyssa, welcome, says, what are they doing with Liv Morgan? She deserves so much better. They're giving her a moment to not be completely in the spotlight while they work out something for her at WrestleMania. I do think it's very possible that we do see her in a tag team match or a tag team championship match. I'm just not sure when that moment will come. I foresee Liv Morgan versus Nikki Cross sometime soon, and Liv Morgan will continue to be a factor. Some point this year, I expect Liv Morgan to be a champion. They're just taking her out of the limelight again. She's had a moment. It's gone very well. She will have it again. Michael says, if someone wants a release, they should just be very vocal on Twitter and force WWE's hand. Well, Ali has said two things on Twitter that stand out there, Michael. Firstly, when he said, I have requested my release. They didn't like that. Secondly, and even worse, when he said, I don't want to be in the Rumble, I want to be released. They didn't like that. That has convinced them we have to keep hold of him just to spite him. I don't think they're going to succeed at that. Mogsy says, sorry I popped out for a minute, what did you say about Finn? There are no real plans for Finn Balor. The WWE don't seem to know how to write him. They've already lent back into him being the extraordinary man who does extraordinary things. He essentially requested the killing off of the Demon King. The King became a crutch and has been essentially removed from the Pantheon. Since then, however, he's just getting beat up. Finn Balor is likely to be shifted into the position of taking on Austin Theory at WrestleMania. Yes, I know we've seen it. They'll do it again. Ring Scoop says Shawn taking over NXT is his way of getting back at Triple H for sending him home in 2001. By which, in 2001? Do you mean 1998? 2002 is when he came back. 2001, Triple H was like in charge, but Triple H was injured for most of 2001. Sean says, I managed to see another clip of Matt's Twitch stream, this being the Hardys, and he said Jeff was stressed out with things in WWE. When he left during the match, he knew he was done with them. Matt's wife asked if Jeff did it intentionally, and Matt said no. I can understand exactly what he's saying here. There are plenty of times, when I've just not wanted to go on with my workday. We've all been there. The main reason Steve Austin was so over is because we've all had that dickhead boss who you just don't want to work for anymore. You just don't want to be there putting up with that shit. And yet, you grit your teeth, you bear with it because you got to feed your family, you've got to look after your house, you've got to pay for things, you've got to be there for people. Jeff Hardy doesn't have to do that. He has earned a lot of money and he knows he can find work elsewhere. Matt Hardy's been very clear to him that he will find work elsewhere. As soon as Matt left the company, I said it then, I'll say it now. Jeff was always going to very quickly go exactly where his brother was. James Stewart says the final eliminations to each Rumble were just lazy. Pretty much you can see who's going to win, let's get it over. Yeah, that really annoyed me. At the end of the Women's Royal Rumble, we had Ronda Rousey, Charlotte Flair. Let's get an actual match here. Let's give them at least 5 minutes and just go for it. Nope, eliminated immediately. You've got Drew McIntyre versus Brock. Now, I get this one. Drew McIntyre is still carrying an injury. They've got to be careful with him. But he literally just got tossed right out. Just tossed right out. They could have done so much more, but then again, it should have ended between Brock Lesnar and Kevin Owens. Shouldn't have ended as Shane McMahon. Shouldn't have ended as Bad Bunny. Brock wouldn't have let it end as Matt Riddle. And that leaves Kevin Owens. That would have been a great final two. They could have had a proper wrestling match. Brock would have sold for Kevin Owens. They like each other. Just wasn't good. It's a good spot, James. Rob says, oh, big question here, Tom. Are the women getting an elimination chamber in Saudi Arabia, or do you think that due to it being a chamber with women, it's hard to get a pass by Saudi? The WWE have booked a women's chamber match. However, the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia have essentially said no. WWE have said, please no. Please no. No. Please no. No. And the plan is for 2 weeks to do that, basically. I suspect they'll get their way. I suspect they'll be held to pay. Robs believes that Reigns and Rollins was a very good chapter to their story. I agree. After that, yeah, which is fair. Bailey says Ali is getting gardening pay. He is. He absolutely is. Ali is still getting paid. He has his guaranteed downside, so even if he literally sits at home and refuses to come to work, if they don't release him, he'll still get paid. He just won't get paid his bonuses, he won't get paid his full wage, and so on and so forth. He's not getting paid as much, but he's still getting paid. Kelvin says, I hope WWE changed their mind about Charlotte versus Ronda Rousey. The intention, last I heard, Charlotte Flair versus Ronda Rousey at this year's WrestleMania, Becky Lynch versus Ronda Rousey at next year's WrestleMania. Jay says, did Becky know about Lita? She looked surprised. She did, yes. Lita was there for a reason. They'd already met up earlier in the day. Sonic says, like you said, Alexa Bliss is still rebuilding her character. Meanwhile, we still got Bayley still slated for a return in March. Asuka is returning this month, and Lacey Evans. Haven't heard anything about Lacey Evans, not for a long time. Asuka, she is cleared. She will be returning to wrestling shortly. They won't be putting her in the chamber just because that's too big a risk. And Bayley, I expect we'll start to see her soon. She will likely make her big return. I suspect they will save her until the day after WrestleMania. The Raw after Mania is when I expect to see Bayley return. Hey Wiggly, how you doing, man? Megan was indeed tapping away. February 22nd, 2016 was when Shane came back. So it was 2016. I've got to be careful when there's a Megan in the chat. I always get stuff wrong when there's Megan. I get in my head too much because I know I've got an expert here. Yes, Megan, you're an expert. Yas says, why WWE not using Jinder to his full potential? I think they just forget they've got him, to be honest. Jinder Mahal is a former WWE champion and he's being used as a jobber. He's not even really getting over Shanky. Like, they've got a giant who just keeps losing matches. So, I don't know, use him? You could have a Cruz and Commander Aziz levels thing, but then again they've forgotten about Cruz and Commander Aziz, so who knows with that one. Really, they only remember they have Jinder Mahal when they do something based around India. And he's Canadian, of course. Jason says Shane needs a Mean Street posse back to back him up. I did see an interesting tweet where someone said that they would fight Shane McMahon for the rights to the phrase peak gas. That says all about it. Alyssa is asking, is Sasha Banks going to be in the title picture at WrestleMania? At the moment, no. They do not know what match they are going to have for Sasha Banks at WrestleMania, but they are determined to have one. Connor says, I'm eating bourbon biscuits. Who's really living? I have cherry digestives. Spider-Boss says, I noticed WWE using pre-taped reactions when Ronda was cutting her promo. Yeah, boo, yeah, uh-oh. Kevin Dunn's job now. Sean says, I'd like to see Alexa versus Liv sometime this year. So would Alexa and Liv. I believe that is expected to happen. Hector says, have you heard any more from WWE NXT, specifically on Roxy and her tryout? Do you think she will get signed, or is it just chatter currently? They liked what they saw. They very much liked what they saw from Roxy. They are interested in signing her. She does have offers from elsewhere. They have not offered her more than the competition have. Basically. It's up to her at the minute. They are offering tryouts a lot less money than they used to. If you are watching on YouTube, please remember that little thumbs up can make a massive difference here on the channel. And of course, it will help us grow our viewership. If we get just 2 subscribers from our starting point today, we will have reached an extra 100 subscribers over the past 28 days. I'm going to post a link to the YouTube on the Twitch, so if you've not jumped over, clicked like or subscribed, jump over, do so. I'd very much appreciate it. We are growing very fast and we are about 10% away from monetization. On Sunday, I hosted a show and said we are 600 watch hours away from the 4,000 required. We are now 400 watch hours away from the 4,000 required. In a week, we've gained 200 hours. We are this close. Ring Scoots, thank you, saying Sean had shown up on TV one day under the influence and Triple H sent him home right before he turned his life around. They've talked about it in their documentaries. Thank you, Ring Scoops. I did not know that. That is interesting stuff. Robs also clarifies that, saying 2001 was the night he showed up blasted. During the NWO stuff, they had a public falling out backstage, then went home, finally found sobriety for his wife and son. And, let's not forget, God. Moneymaker says, last year we had a women's main event match everyone wanted to see in Sasha versus Bianca. This year we have a match, from what I can tell, hardly anyone wants to see in Charlotte versus Ronda. Why would WWE think people would be interested in that match? Well, I imagine the main reason is the $1 billion profit that they've made. Here's the thing. They could serve us up things that we don't want all year. People still watch. They still make money. Their money isn't really based on fans anymore. Their money isn't really based on viewership. They know they'll still make money. They know they can get away with it. Now, I'm confident we will eventually get Becky versus Ronda, the match that everyone does want. I'm sure we'll see Bianca versus Ronda at some point soon. I think there's quite a few people who are looking forward to lining up against Ronda Rousey. Sasha Banks definitely wants another match. But at the moment, yes, we have Charlotte versus Ronda. Steve says, you mentioned WWE have matches planned for Mania but not stories. If you could do some fantasy booking, how would you book one of these matches? It's a very good question. Very good question. I like to fantasy book, but I don't want to give too much away because I haven't got concrete anything on these particular matches. Let's say, for example, they're going to do an Intercontinental Championship match. It's probably going to be Sami Zayn. I think that's fair. However, knowing that it's Sami Zayn, knowing that Shinsuke Nakamura is going to be involved, let's make this a payday. And you know what? I'm not even going to hide it. I'm not even going to hide what we're doing here. Sami Zayn is going to beat Shinsuke Nakamura for the Intercontinental Championship. He's going to hold the championship high and he's going to say, well done me. He's going to gloat, he's going to celebrate. Nakamura's going to come out and say, I want another shot. Naturally, Sami Zayn's going to say no. Then the mid-card arrives. Cesaro. Been a long time since people have been looking at me, but I've got a lot to give. I want a shot. Sami Zayn says no. Who else have we got? Who else have we got who can get involved here? Ricochet. Ricochet comes out. Talks about the fact that he's flying all over the place. He's getting the WWE Universe on their feet, but he hasn't had an Intercontinental Championship shot. Why not? And then, this I think is going to be the interesting thing. Boog steps up. He says, well, if everyone's asking for a shot, sorry Shinsuke, I want a shot. I'd love a shot here. Shinsuke and Nakamura pull him to one side. They start whispering. No one's sure what's happening, but they start whispering. Meanwhile, Mansoor comes out. Mansoor comes down and says, I was undefeated for this long. I worked my arse off. I want a shot. Now, I think that's a good crowd. I think that's a very good crowd. The part where I'm not even going to hide it is at some point, someone's just going to pull out a ladder. Sometimes I like the basics, but tell you what I would do. The most obvious one, Usos versus Viking Raiders. That's a match that's going to be happening soon. Looks like it's planned for WrestleMania. It's one I've spoken about before. All I would do is have the Viking Raiders beat the ever-living shit out of the Usos every opportunity they get. I'd have 6-man tag matches, Drew McIntyre and the Viking Raiders versus Roman and the Usos, the Bloodline. I would have Roman and Drew fight off, go off in any direction, and I'd have the Viking Raiders beat the ever-living shit out of the Usos. Just literally destroy them repeatedly. That's how you build, guys. Anyway, you put me on the spot there. I did the best I could. Sean says, do you think Cora Jade and Raquel can win the Women's Dusty Classic? Yes, I do. Cora Jade is someone that the WWE are very much behind. Kevin Dunn's really quite a big fan as well. Shawn Michaels is a big fan. Raquel Gonzalez was more of a Triple H product, but she's still popular, considered one of the top names, and someone who is likely to move up soon, which is why I don't think it's a gimme that they're going to win, but they're certainly going to be in the mix later on. Steve is giving a shout out to Megan, Queen of the Stats. Queen of the Stats. Sonic says, my best bet is to have a safe Asuka coming back for March because this month is too risky, especially with her injury. Yeah, but then she's got to have a WrestleMania match. Who would that be? Sasha Asuka? I wouldn't mind that again. They've had some good matches. Spiderboss says, do you see Becky appearing on this Friday Night SmackDown? I don't think she'd bother to turn up, to be honest. Moneymaker thinking much the same. Why not just do Sasha versus Asuka at WrestleMania? Why not? It's a very fair shout. I think that'd be a very good match. One of them does have to lose, though. So which one are you having losing that? Rob says, I feel like when Bayley comes back, all will be right in the world of wrestling, especially in the women's division. She was a true locker room leader when she was champion and after. Indeed. And she is definitely going to come back to a proper hero's welcome. I cannot wait for that moment. Because to be honest, I also really want to deliver that hero's welcome. Yash says, as per some reports, Vince, Shane and Brock were discussing about Royal Rumble booking. Vince granted what Brock pitched but denied Shane's booking ideas. Is it true? There is not enough detail in that to really say for sure what specifics are true. What I will say is that some of Shane's ideas made it through, a lot of them were turned down, and everything Brock Lesnar wanted went through. Because Brock Lesnar wanted two things, to win and not to do anything with Matt Riddle. So he picked up Matt Riddle and he went like that. Oh, thank you, Megan. I would imagine, literally, that came up as I was doing the fantasy booking. Just seen on IG, sorry if this has been mentioned, but Usos versus Viking Raiders tag title match has been confirmed for Saudi. Fantastic. I still believe that's going to be the WrestleMania match. They'll just rematch it. Hello, KJ, how are you? Connor says, also, it seems Ronda versus Charlotte is less about what we want, but about what they wanted years back before they got forced to add Becky to the match at Mania. Yeah, that's it. That's exactly right. Spiderboss says, Ronda's giving me Brock 2018 vibes. Good. That's the plan. That's very much the plan. Jay Quick says, who do you see winning the WWE title in the Chamber and going into Mania as champion, and against who? At the moment, I'm leaning towards Lashley versus Rollins. That's where my head is right now. KJ says, I have an old question that I finally remembered. But what happened with WWE and Christian? Did WWE want to use him as a jobber type guy and he said no to that, or maybe they didn't give him good money? Well, he was cleared by the WWE. They were interested in using him, but not as a full-time wrestler. There was no intention to use him as a full-time wrestler. The ideas pitched to him were mostly to basically back up the Edge and Randy Orton storyline. He heard these pitches and answered the phone to AEW. He felt they had better options there, and to be blunt, he did. KJ suggesting for the IC Championship, Sami versus Ricochet, Cesaro and Drew McIntyre. The user says, do you think there's any WWE superstars that WWE have really given up on? Yeah, Apollo Crews, Dana Brooke. There's quite a few that they've literally given up on because they've just given them nothing interesting for a long time. Ali, they've given him nothing interesting for a long time. Well, that's disgusting, Ring Scoops, thanks for that. Michael says, I personally think the big time Bex versus Ronda isn't as interesting as the man versus Ronda. Yeah, it's not, but if it's Becky versus Ronda, it'll be face versus heel and Ronda will be the heel. That's one of the reasons they're not doing it right now. Boss Pedal says, call up LA Knight, team in with Boogs, name them Boogie Knights. Like it. That is smooth. Boss Pedal is suggesting Sasha versus Meiko Satomura at WrestleMania. Give Sasha her dream. That would be fun. That is two really good back-to-back messages from Boss Pedal. You are in the zone right now, mate, and I appreciate that. I could definitely get behind Sasha versus Meiko Satomura. I could also get behind Sasha and Bayley versus Asuka and Seiko Satomura. If you're injured, it protects you a little bit, doesn't it? Sean says Alexa versus Sasha at WrestleMania. I'd love that they have never wrestled each other on the big stage. They have. They wrestled at Great Balls of Fire and SummerSlam. Moneymaker says, you think we will ever see Sasha and Bayley versus the Bella Twins? Yes. I don't think we'll see it yet, but we will see it. And Jay Quick says, do you see them doing a WrestleMania Women's Battle Royal? I do. I'm confident we are going to see both Battle Royals, men's and women's, at WrestleMania this year. They need to give people paydays. It's just going to be truncated. And there may be some surprise entrants because ultimately they don't have that many people. Mogsy says, do you think Seth will become champion this year? Yes, I do. Seth Rollins has been told he's going to be back in the championship picture for a little while. He was told that when he first moved to Raw, because he was essentially told, when you move to Raw, you're going to be the top name. Thus far, he has kind of been the top name. But now the Big E's been moved back over, he does become the top name again. KJ says, with Big E back on SmackDown, seemingly, as he missed the last 3 Raws, what are his Mania plans? Maybe a 6-man with New Day versus Usos and maybe Solo Sikoa from NXT. Possibly. My expectation is that we'll get New Day versus Usos again and again and again. At the moment, I don't think there are any big plans for Big E at WrestleMania. I think Roman getting COVID when he did convinced the WWE to take the championship off of Big E. The plan seemed to be Seth Rollins versus Big E at WrestleMania, with Seth Rollins winning the championship at day 1. But I'm going to be really honest with everyone. Just really honest with everyone. The Big E push is done. The WWE are going to do to Big E exactly what they did to Kofi Kingston. He lost the championship to Brock Lesnar. He went straight back into his tag team. They didn't really think about him afterwards. Sadly, that's the plan. Spider-Boss says Sasha now is kind of in the same place as Becky in 2019 before WrestleMania 35. Not sure on that, because Becky before WrestleMania 35, the original plan was Becky versus Asuka, with Becky being the heel. And then they went winner take all. WrestleMania 35 was the women's triple threat. Becky Lynch was always going to go in that, and by always, I mean since Survivor Series. It was originally, of course, just going to be Ronda versus Charlotte, but they're going to get their match eventually. Sonic says Asuka versus Meiko at WrestleMania will be interesting, but then what does Sasha do? Moneymaker agrees with me with the idea of Sasha and Bayley versus Asuka in... says Sasha and Bayley versus Asuka in EO at WrestleMania. Could also be good. Rob says, yeah, about Big E. What the hell was this random move back to SmackDown about? I thought he was just there for a one-off appearance. He was originally there for a one-off appearance, and then the creative team realised they had nothing for him, and SmackDown needed him, so they were just like, yep. Yeah, they have nothing for him. Ring Scoop says, New Day versus Usos like Hardys, Dudleys, Edge and Christian. Great matches, phenomenal matches, just way overdone. You could not be more right on that, Ring Scoop. Could not be more right. I remember watching a lot of matches between Hardys and Dudleys. Hardys and Edge and Christian. Edge and Christian and Dudleys. Edge and Christian, Hardys and Dudleys. And then every now and then the Hardys and the Acolytes, because they remember they had another team. The WWE need to remember they have other teams. We could have great matches between New Day and Viking Raiders, for example. Let's build someone new, because it was only a few years ago we were building New Day, Usos, Bludgeon Brothers. Then they went back to New Day and Usos. They still have tag teams, they're just not using them. Rob says Big E will win the Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royal on the pre-show. Not impossible, Robs. Not impossible at all. I think that could be the WWE conceding a little bit and basically saying, yeah, but we care about him though. We've totally got plans. Honest. Big E's our favourite. Big E's our favourite. You know, they do that a lot. Like that, the vignette they played for Sasha Banks. Just basically them saying, yeah, we know she's there. It's fine, we know. Shut up. Noob says, have you seen the main event of NXT UK? The ending is yikes. No, I don't watch NXT UK. Too many sexual abusers. Jay says WWE should just let Ronda pick somebody else. Hope Bayley comes back before WrestleMania and give us a 4 horsewomen main event. Ronda wants Charlotte, mate. Ronda wants Charlotte. Connor says New Days versus Usos at Hell in a Cell was class. For me, that is still the pinnacle of their feud. The fact that the match was going so well, the referee was told, give them an extra 15 minutes. Just give them more time. Let them know, tell them to keep going. And they wrestled for like 50 minutes. It is insane and well worth a watch again. Rob says, this is just a fun, silly question I always wanted to ask. Is pyro only specific to certain people? You're gonna like this. The pyro budget is based on who can afford it, basically. So if you're a big name, you get the pyro. You don't get the pyro if you're a little name. Essentially, you reach a certain income, then you get pyro. Sean says, Io, Dakota, Raquel in the Women's Battle Royal at WrestleMania, then called up on Raw and SmackDown after Mania. A number of different NXT talents are expected to be called up after WrestleMania and will likely feature in the Battle Royals, but they are going to be protecting them, as in they are not likely to feature too much if they're not going to win. Raquel, Io and Dakota, if they're all in it, would likely be our final 3. Ring Scoop says, underrated program, but I absolutely love New Day versus New Day versus Usos in 2000. Pardon me. Got it. Usos versus Wyatt in 2014-15. I like that as well. It was real fundamental tag team stuff, and I really enjoyed it. The Wyatt family were damn good. Jason Wedge says, do you think they will ever split the New Day up? Will we ever see a triple threat match between them in the future? No, yes. They can't split them up. Even if you force them to split up, as the WWE did do quite recently, they just won't. They just will refuse to split up. They will instead hold signs that say, we miss E, as Austin Creed has done so in the past. A triple threat, however, I can see. It just won't be a aggressive triple threat. It'll be 3 faces going at it, and then at the end of the match, they'll have a big hug and say, okay, you earned it. Personally, I suspect they will give the win to Woods, and they will decide that themselves. Badaboss says, WWE making Sasha take a backseat to Ronda is like FIFA denying any award to Robert Lewandowski. It's money, mate. Sasha earns him a lot of money. She's a draw. She don't earn him as much as Ronda Rousey. That's the only reason. The user says, I'm always asking this, but who do you think will go from AEW to WWE? I'm always answering this. I believe it will be Lance Archer. Rob says, I'd just like to see Nathaniel Fraser brought over from NXT UK to 2.0. There's a number of people who I'd love to see brought over from NXT UK, mostly to get away from the stench of NXT UK. Show sucks. Ring Scoop says, that explains why James Ellsworth never got his piece of the pyro budget. Yeah, basically. Moxley says, what match should we watch again? Last Woman Standing. It is absolutely fantastic. Well worth a watch. Also, I highly recommend my favourite Cell match is, the Usos New Day is definitely up there. My favourite Hell in a Cell match is Becky versus Sasha. The chair spot is it's just magnificent. Moneymaker says, why don't WWE ever do the 4 Horsewomen Fatal 4-Way? Essentially, when they first split the brands, they wanted to spread out the Horsewomen. Bayley hadn't been called up yet. She was still representing NXT. They moved Becky to SmackDown to push her. Since then, they balanced out the 4 Horsewomen across both shows because that, for them, is their way of ensuring star power on both. In order to have the 4 Horsewomen Fatal 4-Way, you need enough star power in the women's division to have on one brand with the 4 Horsewomen on the other brand. It's coming, but it's not there yet. If you put, for example, Ronda, Alexa, Bianca on one show, still don't quite balance out those 4 Horsewomen, does it? KJ says, WWE reported their first full year of revenues over $1 billion in 2021. Yep, budget cuts. Bit of news on that earlier, but I collated as much information as I could about the salary of all the people that they released. It covers about 0.8% of the profit that they made. Jacob says, who do you see AJ fighting at Mania? I believe I'm the same as everyone else here, but Edge. Okay, ring soups, that sucks. Sean says, Ember praised her time in WWE. She said there was no use being upset. Quite similar to Tyler Breeze. A lot of people who were released by WWE and actually don't hold a grudge. They'll probably be the ones brought back. Spider-Boss says, if Ronda beats Charlotte at WrestleMania 38, who do you think can beat Ronda? Shayna. That's kind of the plan. The user says, is there any idea of who Drew's next feud is with? Eventually Roman, but for WrestleMania I'm suspecting it's going to be Baron Corbin. And at that point, I'm going to have to call it there. We've been going for just over an hour. We've had plenty of questions. We will be back at the same time tomorrow. So if you have any more questions, by all means save them for our Friday show. And of course, we will be doing our usual watch parties for SmackDown. So, thank you everyone for joining me. Please do remember, if you've been watching on YouTube, hit that like, hit the subscribe button. If we get just 2 more, that is more than 100 new subscribers in the last 28 days, the last 4 weeks. More than 100. We have grown in a huge degree, and it's you guys making that happen. Every like, every subscription, every chat, every engagement on Twitch as well. I know I'm focusing a lot on YouTube, but these shows don't last an hour without you guys here to talk to. Some of the early shows I did, all Q&A would last 15-20 minutes because I just didn't have any questions. Here, I never run out. I'm always way behind and doing my best to catch up. So thank you everyone, bottom of my heart. I really do appreciate it. In the meantime, I've been Tom Colohue. You've been fantastic. Thank you for being so welcoming and coming to my first Thursday show randomly. I'll hopefully see you all tomorrow. Thank you and good night.